Steve, back with a season-ending hike here in Death Valley National Park. It's the middle of May, it's quite hot out, and I'm standing here at the boundary between Death Valley National Park and the Grapevines Wilderness Study Area in the Grapevine Mountains. My hike is going to head off into a very remote area of the northern Grapevine Mountains. I'll tell you more about that in a bit. But as you probably saw on that footage, which was taken just outside of the park, I was driving down this road, which I call the Rim of the World Road, because it has such an incredible view overlooking this canyon here in the northern Grapevines that very few people have ever been to before. And this hike is a celebration of sorts for me. That's why I came back one more time beyond the hiking season, when most of the hikers have already left for the season because of the heat. But I wanted to come back and do this final hike because this hiking season was so special and successful for me. Actually, the best hiking season I've had here in the last 5 years. In fact, just last night, had a very special occasion where Death Valley Park staff had me over for a special dinner. And I've got some leftovers to start out this morning. A great way to start this hike. Got some nice chicken pesto pasta and garlic bread, which will get me fueled for today's hike. So without mentioning names, I'd like to thank the person who set up this meal and cooked it. She did a wonderful job. I really appreciate it. And all the Death Valley Park staff members that joined me for that special end of the season dinner. So I'm gonna go ahead and eat this for breakfast, and then I'm gonna tell you about the hike. Okay, I'm ready to get started, but as I mentioned, there's extreme heat out. It's actually over 100 degrees in Furnace Creek today, which means up here I'm starting at about 5,000 feet in elevation. It's going to be in the 80s. So I've had to take measures to deal with the extreme heat. Bring in my sunbrella, better hat to give me a little bit more protection, and doing an extra water carry. Gonna bring 2 or 3 gallons plus what's already in my pack. There's about 3/4 of a gallon in the pack right now, so maybe 2 gallons, but I'm gonna load it up. This is an overnight hike, a 2-day hike into the heat, into the Grapevine Mountains. One thing I always like to do is to weigh my pack when I'm starting out with a heavy water carry. "54 pounds. That's quite a heavy pack to start out. 20 pounds of that is water, but what can I do? I can't run out of water out here. First time using my brand new backpack as well. The view from where I'm going to drop into the canyon. My truck is parked about 20 minutes from here, and now I've got to drop down 500 feet in elevation into this canyon, which I call Grapevine's WSA Canyon, standing for Wilderness Study Area, because it's a large canyon that extends through the Wilderness Study Area. This was a hike that I first did 7 years ago with my sister Tiffany and my friends Tom and Sarah. And this is Death Valley Discoveries episode 13, entitled Rosy Canyon. So Rosy Canyon will be the central point of this overnight backpack, but I'm going to be seeing a lot more in addition to it. First things first, I got to get down from this ridge into the canyon wash below. The initial descent here is quite steep, trying to get down this slope. A lot of loose gravel too. Gotta have real caution through here. The slope has lightened up a bit. It's still not easy, but it's definitely not as steep Working my way down, about a third of the way right now. So the ridge has turned into a gully, and I am working my way carefully down this gully. Almost down from this gully. This has been quite the challenging down climb. Way to start a overnight backpack, but no doubt it'll be harder tomorrow evening or afternoon when I have to hike back up this to get back to the truck. Made it out of the gully. What a relief. And look at this, what I call Grapevine's WSA Canyon. Very wide canyon circling around the northern end of the range. I'm going to be heading down canyon. Feels awesome to be back here in this far away remote place of the Grapevines. Of course, the Grapevines are the range I have hiked in the most. Well over 1 month of time I've spent in the Grapevines. As those of you who watch my films know, the Owl's Heads come in second, just behind the Grapevines for amount of time. But this trip's about the Grapevines and Rosy Canyon. Funny thing is, a Death Valley staff member mentioned to me last night at my dinner party that I may very well be the first person to hike Rosy Canyon since I hiked it 7 years ago. But there's a reason I'm back, and this is extremely beautiful. I'm literally passing through a 25 square mile area of the Grapevines in between Backthrust Canyon and Gray Wall Canyon that sees very few, I would almost say if any, but very few hikers at all. Look at this nice canyon wall right here. Very high, beautiful walls in this part of the canyon. A lot of globe mallow in bloom right now in the park. Not just here, but 4,000, 5,000 feet in elevation. This is actually the spot where I'm leaving what I call Grapevine's WSA Canyon and heading through here, which is the first point of interest, and I call it Tafoni Slot. Entering into Tafoni Slot right now. Stopped in the shade here into the beginning of Tafoni Slot. It's already heating up here in the Grapevines, but Tafoni Slot is a very nice canyon. Slot Canyon provides an immediate payoff and something special to see in getting down into this area. What I'm going to do is I'm going to continue hiking through it, and then I'm going to do a crossover to get into Rosy Canyon. If I had continued down the main canyon, I would eventually reach the mouth of Rosy Canyon and turn left into it. But this is kind of like a shortcut to get into it, so that I don't have to go through and come back. Wow, this is impressive. Check this little window formation right here. This hike is truly off to a great start. Absolutely love Tafoni Slot, the honeycomb weathering, all the smooth walls, the layers and designs. Yeah, really enjoying this already. Been a few climbs here, fairly easy climbs in this slot in order to keep going. As you can tell, this is quite a lengthy slot canyon. Oh wow, look at this. What an awesome section right through here. Not expecting this. Whoa. I was not expecting, which means I must have forgotten, this very impressive long corridor-like area through Tafoni Slot. What an impressive view looking back here through this slot. As I think I'm just about to come out of it up ahead. A little bit of a more open area right here. Finished up Tafoni Slot. The Tafoni, to speak of, is actually kind of above the slot, so it's always just out of view. But if you're up a little higher, then you can see it covering the hillsides above the slot. But now from here, I got to go about 1/3 of a mile through this open area and climb up to a crossover spot to drop into Rosy Canyon. Here's a neat little climb. Made it up to the top ridge, which separates Tafoni Slot, which is on that side, and Rosy Canyon, which is on that side. That was quite a climb out to do this crossover. Unnecessary, except for just kind of shortcutting Rosy Canyon, cutting a mile out of that canyon. But it just makes sense because this takes me straight into Rosy Canyon, which I'll show you the scenery here in a moment. Here are the views. This is looking back down the upper portion of Tafoni Slot where it's more just a hillside. If you look all the way across, that far ridge is actually back where I started. The truck is parked beyond that far ridge. But over on this side, I'm now going to drop into Rosy Canyon. The wash is just down below there. Found a fairly decent drop in to Rosy Canyon. It's like it should only take about 10 minutes or so for me to get down. I made it down into Rosy Canyon, just had a short snack break, and the heat has not really yet arrived today. It's after 12 o'clock, but there's a wind, kind of a cool wind. So when the wind stops, I do feel a little bit of a heat, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. My first view as I'm hiking up Rosy Canyon. First thing I notice, hillsides covered with globe mallow, some Joshua trees, and the canyon has a steep grade to it where it looks like it'll be gaining elevation fairly quickly. As I'm heading up Rosy Canyon, I want to explain the canyon name for a moment. So Tom and I named the canyon Rosy Canyon because there was an abundance of gray-crowned Rosy finches. Several spots throughout the canyon when we did our original hike. So that was really the defining feature, seeing those specific birds. What was interesting, they were also quite tame. They would let us get real close to them and take pictures, but not sure if I'll see any today because this is a different time of year. It's hotter out, but the canyon was well named. Here's a neat little area between some rough or jagged rock walls. Also just ahead, not sure if it'll turn out on the video or not, but the hillside is covered with globe mallow. You can see all the orange. See if some of the orange globe mallow will stand out enough to turn out, covering these hillsides. Rounding a bend here in the canyon and start to see some of these major northern peaks in the grapevines come into view high above Rosy Canyon. Some really impressive towering cliffs there. Nice colored canyon floor right here. Always love that when the walls stretch down to the canyon floor and the gravel's washed away so you could see the coloring. You know it's getting hot out when I gotta seek shade under rock walls. But as long as the wind is blowing, I feel a little cool air. Once it stops, I can feel that 80+ degree heat just being trapped in the canyon. Really heating things up, making me hot. Nice white and dark contrasting colors here on this left side hillside. Canyon's really picking up in scenery the higher I get up it. So more of these nice variety of colors right in the canyon washer, just slightly above it. Wide variety. Yellows, pinks. Approaching a very nice spot here in Rosy Canyon. Behind me, that's a major dry fall here in Rosy Canyon. Well, maybe medium dry fall. I can climb up it. I believe that's how we went up last time, but I do have this 50-pound pack, so I'm gonna check around and look for another way around this without having to deal with that. Working my way into the upper canyon at this point. Still lots of globe mallow just covering everywhere. Also Mojave aster. Here's something you don't see too often. A large, about 12-foot high Joshua tree was uprooted, no doubt due to flash flooding, and literally just is laying down here in the wash. Still green, still alive, but not for much longer. This cloud above Rosy Canyon keeps on teasing me. It would provide a bit of coolness and shade while hiking, but it just won't quite blow over the canyon. It has gotten quite hot out. I'm at 5,000 feet in elevation right now, and I'm in the shade taking a nice break. See this little area right here. But yeah, when I'm out and hiking in the sun, it's definitely in the 80s, definitely very hot. I've already gone through 3/4 of a gallon of water today. I had to pull out the sunbrella. It's just going through water a little bit too quickly out here. I can feel the temperature difference when I'm hiking in shade rather than direct sun from the sunbrella. So hoping to use a little bit less water here the rest of today by doing this. Absolutely love this spot in the canyon with these rosy colored walls with these streaks, white and pink. Look at this. So pretty through here, these walls. Remember this spot from last time I hiked the canyon. Taking a closer look here from the shade. Actually, you can see some yellow in here even amongst these streaks of pink crossing the white rock. Very pretty. Little bit of a tricky spot in the canyon here. This is looking down Rosy Canyon, and this is a side canyon that turns off to the left. You can actually see there's some very pretty colorful formations up there, which is kind of a glimpse of what we'll see tomorrow. But right here at this junction, you can see between these two canyons, actually you're going to stay right and go this way. Really vivid red colors here on this canyon wall. Actually heading into a short stretch of narrows right here. Look at this polished fall right here. Very pretty spot. Here's the view looking down that little polished dry fall. Again, very beautiful spot in the canyon. Look at these walls. And these short narrows continue up ahead. The scenery in Rosy Canyon does take a little while to pick up, but wow. Upper Canyon, gorgeous place. Got some pinks, got some purples. Bright red colored canyon wall just there behind me. And heading forward, some nice white rock, which has created a little bit of obstacle here to climb over easily. Getting into the far upper reaches of the canyon now. Not much canyon left before I'm going to begin climbing out of it to a saddle. It's been a while since I've seen a snake in the park. Okay, I'll back off. He did not like my attention. Nice looking hillside up there. All the formations, rock formations rising out. And I'm starting to see some big trees as well. Checking in with a little bit of an update. I'm just about to the end of Rosy Canyon. And now what I've got to do is I'm going to pass by some big trees that I remember from before and have marked on my GPS, and I got to climb up to a saddle which will drop me into the other side, which is the South Fork of Rosy Canyon. But it's going to be a little bit of a tough climb out, and especially in view of the heat and the steepness of the terrain. I've reached the crossover fork. I've got to turn this way heading up toward that big tree. Just sitting here enjoying the shade underneath one of these big trees. See, I got a nice view here. But just sitting here reflecting, thinking back to 7 years ago when I was here with my sister Tiffany and friends Tom and Sarah. It's hard to believe how quickly so much time could go by. But yeah, that was a special hike back then when we discovered this place and named it, and we all had such a fun day out here. But very pretty canyon. Really enjoying this hike. The heat is a little bit tough to deal with today, but I'm getting through it. And I am happy to be out here. This gully climb has actually been the hardest thing I've done today. It's quite steep. And continuing right up here, there's a little level spot, but then I'm going to turn right and have more climbing. Gully climb update. Continuing to pass through fields of white flowers and globe mallow as I head steeply up this gully. Look at all these white flowers I'm passing through. Actually a strong scent of flowers in the air. It smells quite nice, especially when the wind blows it towards me. Been a special treat the last 15 minutes. I've been sitting here looking out at that distant ridge, and I see at least 3 bighorn sheep. They're kind of scrambling above and on that little cliff face and keeping a watchful eye on me. But it's been nice. Oh wow, look at that. I don't know if you could see that little rock slide, but the bighorn that was on top kind of came down and knocked a bunch of rocks down, and the other two bighorn jumped out of the way before the rocks could get to them. Just watching over on this hillside directly across from me, 3 bighorn sheep. I don't have a good zoom camera with me on this trip. Didn't want to pack the weight, but this is nice, just sitting here late in the afternoon watching the bighorn sheep roam the hillside. Special moment in the grapevines indeed. For some reason the sheep got super close to me. They came all the way down from the top of the mountain to just kind of right in front of me across a small gully. They're just staring at me. I think they're curious. Maybe they've never seen another human before, being that they live in the northern grapevines. This has been a really special 30 minutes with these sheep right here. I'm gonna soak it all in. I'm not going anywhere till they do. The 3 sheep are just literally so close to me, just across that little gully right there. And they're so tame and curious that 2 of the 3 have just sat down and are watching me. And the third one is just standing around, snacking on plants and also watching. It's been a really, really neat experience. I said when I started this hike that this hike is being done kind of a celebration of this wonderful hiking season. Now as I'm just sitting out looking across this gully at these 3 sheep, they all sat down, they kind of pawed the ground to smooth it out, and then just sat down and are watching me and just kind of looking around, relaxing. So yeah, this is really special. I finally made it to the saddle. I'm looking back toward the way I came, up Rosy Canyon all the way over to what I call the Rim of the World Drive and Grapevine's WSA Canyon. Then up here into the northern grapevines. This is looking south, but this is the far northern grapevines. Just 1.3 air miles from here is peak T89, which is high BM. And just beyond that is peak 8460. So 2 major summits not far from here. And then this right here drops into the South Fork, what we call the South Fork of Rosy Canyon, and loops around the hillside the opposite way. Up here on this saddle, it's quite windy and it's actually cool outside. It's about 5:30. I spent probably close to an hour watching those bighorn sheep, and it was well worth it. Like I said, this is a celebration for me being out here, and I was very happy to spend my time doing that. It's funny looking back here off toward the Bonnie Claire area. I actually see some rain coming down from those clouds. So yeah, weather's changing a bit. It's really cooled me off, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of the day. I was originally thinking maybe going for these summits because they're not that far from here. But the problem that came in was I drank a lot more water than I was supposed to because it was very hot outside. So I'm going to keep it on the safe side and just stick to my route and continue going. I'm going to do a little bit more, maybe try to get down to Rosy Amphitheater and camp there. Heading down the gully. Real dark clouds up in the sky right now. I wouldn't be surprised if I got rained on. But I'm heading down this gully. It's not that easy. It's narrow. Typical Death Valley gully, I guess, coming down from a ridge. The usual stuff. Loving the weather here. It has cooled down so much. I'm going to be able to enjoy the rest of today. It is nice and cool outside. The gully has turned into a wash and lightened up quite a bit. Just some nice pleasant walking right now through a really pretty canyon. Such a pretty area here in the upper part of the South Fork. Passing by this nice hillside, different colored rock. Right here we have gold mallow, we have cactus in bloom that I'm passing by. And great views all the way down and out the canyon. Look how pretty it is through here. All these yellow flowers on both sides right here. Just walking through some real beautiful spots here. Really strange. I literally can smell rain. I can smell the moisture in the air, the water. Now, as I stated earlier, I did see rain in the distance, but it has to be fairly close if I have that strong smell of moisture. That would be so crazy if it dumped on me out here. It would be fitting. Looking back up canyon, checking the current state of the clouds. Very nice. This is what I like hiking under when it's mid-May. And looking off in the distance, it does look like some rain is dropping over there on the Last Chance Range. Seeing some of the nicest specimens of globe mallow right now here in this wash. Truly beautiful. Has to be one of the most photogenic globe mallows I've seen, with this orange rock matching the colors of the flower. It's really pretty. Here's something really I was not expecting to find here in the wash of Rosy Canyon's South Fork. Look at this, an old rusted mining bucket. I cannot believe this was randomly just resting here. This right here looks a lot like a tailing. Let me check this out. I have no way to tell for sure, but it almost looks like some digging was done here. Could be a mine tailing or an attempted mine. Maybe they're checking it out. Not totally sure. We got some really pretty purple flowers right here. This large bush. I'm actually doing a crossover. I jumped up out of the South Fork Canyon and I'm just heading over this way. Came up on a bit of a major dry fall here in this side canyon. Pretty surroundings, but I'm gonna have to bypass it. It took a while, but this wash lightened up. Was a nasty gully there for a while. Legs got cut up because I'm wearing shorts. But finally got some better terrain here. It's getting kind of late. It's 7 o'clock at night. Of course, nice benefit of hiking in the spring. It's still light out. Got lots of daylight here. But Rosie Amphitheater, where I'm heading, which is half mile away, is what I consider the highlight of this route. I probably won't check it out tonight, but maybe in the morning. But I plan to camp right outside of Rosy Amphitheater to make the most of that beautiful area. What is Rosy Amphitheater? Well, it's a beautiful array of colors, kind of like a mini artist palette. So I think you'll agree with me that it's quite a special place. Very pretty spot right here. Just love the colors of the flowers, the greenery, and then you have multiple colors of rocks all around as well. Wow, look at some of this scenery through here. This is really pretty through here. There is some really amazing scenery right here. These rock formations coming out of the hillside. It was a long, hot day of hiking, but I made it to camp. And I'm camped just outside the entrance to Rosy Amphitheater, which is up in that direction. So that's the first thing I'm going to do in the morning. Let me show you camp here. Got my tent set up. So, short tour, got my clothing, my food, backpacker's pillow, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, water supply, and my pack. Pretty basic. I'm going to keep the top off tonight because it's been such a hot day. But I love this view here from camp. Gonna cook dinner now and have some lemonade to drink. It's 8 o'clock at night. I'm just enjoying the sunset while my food gets ready. And just want to do a short recap here of day one in the northern Grapevine Mountains. Today was quite challenging, heading up Rosy Canyon, dealing with the intense heat for most of the day until it cooled off around 4. But of course the highlights, I got to see the snake and the 3 bighorn sheep, which I watched for a full hour. Truly incredible here on this special season end overnight backpack bonus episode, I guess you could call it, of Death Valley Discoveries. But I'm out here all alone, of course on a solo backpack. So that's about it until the morning. I'm gonna get to bed early so I can get up early and complete this hike tomorrow. Good morning, everyone. It's day 2 out here in the northern Grapevine Mountains. Already packed up camp, had breakfast, and I'm heading up an obscure small drainage to get to Rosie Amphitheater. It's actually just about 400 feet from here to the start of the colorful amphitheater. A little bit of a small climb to get up into here. So I continue up this drainage. Little bit of a tricky climb. Reminds me of my old quote, "Nothing comes easy in Death Valley." I'm standing up here above the Rosie Amphitheater. A vast array of shapes and colors on display here. Let me share some views with you of Rosie Amphitheater now. That's it for the Rosie Amphitheater. I crossed all the way from that side over to this side and went up all 3 forks of it. Now I'm going to continue down the south fork of Rosy Canyon. The rock in this obscure drainage I'm going down almost has a green tint to it. Interesting canyon wall right here. Really neat looking area through here, this hillside. A lot of Joshua trees here, but this one's doing particularly well. At least 15 feet high. Finally coming out and rejoining the South Fork of Rosy Canyon right here. After jumping out of it late yesterday when I crossed over to head toward Rosie Amphitheater and my camping spot. But now I'm in that main canyon once again. Coming out upon yet another junction just 15 minutes later. Actually, going down in this direction to the north leads into Gray-crowned Canyon. And then up here, it leads back to where I started. It leads past Rosy Canyon and Tafoni Slot and then the rim of the world. Based on the time of day and the heat, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, not quite that hot yet. I'm gonna go ahead and take a side trip down to Gray-crowned Canyon. I'll see how far I can get to it, if I can at least get into some of the narrows before I need to turn around. I think it's 2 miles from here to the end of the Gray-crowned Canyon narrows. Right now, entering into upper Gray-crowned Canyon. The canyon is already starting to take shape on both sides. I've never been in this area of Gray-crowned Canyon. Quite wide open here in upper Gray-crowned Canyon. More flowers. Wow, these are even better. Getting very close to getting into the nice part of Gray-crowned Canyon. I just hiked 1 mile in about 25 minutes to get down here to the entrance to the Gray-crowned Canyon Narrows. This right here is where the Narrows would end if somebody was hiking up from the North Highway. And this is probably the spot where they would turn around. Those few, seldom hikers that end up visiting Gray-crowned Canyon. But let me take you into the Narrows. Should be a special treat. I'm about halfway through the Gray Wall Narrows, and I am very impressed. It's been a long time since I was in here. Don't really remember this canyon hardly at all. But one of my thoughts as I was going through those upper narrows was that this is kind of like a mini version of Titus Canyon. Just much shallower, but some very, very pretty narrows through there. There are actually some seeps and springs in Gray Wall Canyon. Check this out right here. These tall grasses, obviously getting some water. Oh, there's actually a little water pool right here. There are a whole bunch of butterflies in here, all trying to get into this little pool of water. Kind of interesting to see some surface water here in Gray Wall Canyon from this spring or seep. This is actually my turnaround spot for Gray Wall Canyon. So just beyond here, it kind of turns into open wash with hillsides. There's a couple more springs. I don't know if there's any surface water. I don't think there is, but I was surprised to see some right here. But anyway, this is where the canyon proper kind of starts right here. So the heat is coming on. I've seen quite a bit of Gray Wall, and I'm going to head back up canyon toward my pack, which is about 1 hour or 2 miles away. And here's another little seep coming out of the canyon wall. Some bees and butterflies in here. Heading back through the narrows. The shade feels real good through here. It's nice to be able to see the narrows one more time here in Gray Wall Canyon. I'm back from Gray Wall Canyon, and that took about 2 hours 15 minutes to do 4 miles in total, moving at a nice pace, good wash. And let's see, I've got about 2/3 of a gallon of water left, and I've got to start working my way back to the vehicle. I'll see if I have time to check out Lower Rosy Canyon, and there's a couple more slots. I'll have to keep an eye on my water because it is getting super hot out. Location update. This is the canyon I've been hiking up, what I call Grapevine's WSA Canyon. This is the mouth of Rosy Canyon. Now, I've never seen the first mile of Rosy Canyon, so I feel like I do have enough water. I'm going to drop my pack and go up it, and then when I get back, I'm going to continue up this main canyon toward the climb up to the rim of the world. Quite a beautiful canyon wall right here to start out. Same type of formation here on the right side canyon wall. Really impressed at these towering vertical cliffs with some mud drips right here near the beginning of this canyon. Huge mud drips coming down the canyon. Here's some more mud drips. Actually a little bit section of narrows through here. There's a neat overhang. Oh, look at this nice canyon wall right here. Can never film quick enough. It's funny, couple hours ago, I was just wondering if I would see an owl in one of the canyons today, and sure enough, a owl came flying right down Rosy Canyon above me. But I couldn't start filming in time. It was cool to see though. Look at this boulder overhead, held on by the top of the boulder. Looks like it could just drop at any moment. Really deep undercut and overhang right here. Gives me some nice shade. Rock type is changing just a bit through here. Some of the Tafoni or honeycomb weathering. Really impressive cliffs right here. I've reached my turnaround point here for Rosy Canyon. Just up ahead, I can see in the distance the spot where I came down the hillside and joined Rosy Canyon. So kind of just open hillsides and wash in between right here and there. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and head back down canyon. Back in the main canyon after a successful side hike up lower Rosy Canyon. Really glad I did that. Actually, I'd say the lower narrows is probably the best part of the canyon. Some of those beautiful walls. Now I'm continuing up Grapevine's WSA Canyon, as I call it, back toward the entrance to Tafoni Slot. And then I'll begin my climb up to what I call the rim of the world. This neat canyon wall is probably the coolest thing I've seen in this giant main canyon I'm hiking up. Desert 5 spot, my personal favorite Death Valley wildflower. This is quite a large bush here. Lots of flowers on it. Lots of 5 spots. I've begun the ridge climb. Cold wind blowing through the area, helping to lower the temperatures, and water's holding out. Should be back to the truck in 45 minutes or so. Last few steps, climbing up to this rim of the world area, as I call it. All right, I made it. Gained 500 feet in elevation climbing there, which difficult with the heat, with the backpack. Everything I've gone through the last 2 days been quite grueling, battling the heat and having the heavy weight in the pack. But I made it. Now I just got to walk along this rim till I get to my truck. All right, I did it. I'm back here where I started at my parking area along the Rim of the World Drive. I want to share a couple things with you. First of all, this is all the water I have left. As you can see, I don't know, maybe 1/6 of a gallon or less. But I started with 3 gallons for these 2 days. Probably should have brought 3.5 to 4 in view of the heat, but I adjusted my route accordingly and constantly monitored my water. Also, one of my favorite tricks here when I'm out hiking, backpacking in the heat, leave an ice chest full of drinks that will be cold when you get back to your vehicle. Nice cold sparkling water. And with that officially wraps up my hiking season here in Death Valley National Park. This was episode 13 of Death Valley Discoveries, Rosy Canyon. As I mentioned, this was kind of like a celebration hike for me. A wonderful 3 days in Death Valley. On the first evening, spending time with park staff, having a wonderful dinner, and then coming out here and doing this special hike in the grapevines. Keep in mind this area is very remote. It's not something that's recommended for regular hikers or the general public. And an extra challenge was dealing with the heat. Now, even though I am one of the most experienced Death Valley hikers in the world, this was still a challenge for me that I had to be well prepared for and think about every possibility out here. In fact, I did have someone monitoring my hiking the whole time by watching my tractor. But thanks so much to those who watched the video. Thank you to Death Valley Park staff for everything, and we'll see you next hiking season. Farewell, everyone.